So my last video got 5 comments, which is about 5 more than I was expecting. So I've decided to do part 2. So yeah, here it is. Thank you to Diane, Nearly Ace, Amber, Id, and Margie, and everybody else who watched. This one's for you. If a crystal ball could tell you the truth about yourself, your life, the future, or anything else, what would you want to know? Yeah, that's a good question. There's a lot of stuff I do wonder about the future. For example, retirement. Right now, these are my prime earning years, and I got lots of bills to pay. But at some point, it'd be nice to be able to kick back, relax, do more hobby stuff, like iPhone apps, YouTube videos, that sort of thing. I mean, you can make a little bit of money off of these things, but you don't really earn enough to make a living. At least I don't. So it'd be nice to know when I could prudently retire.
Oh, I think you could retire now.
What, you mean like I'm suddenly gonna come into a lot of money, or that I'm gonna die early?
Sorry, only one question.
Well, yeah, but it doesn't seem like I've got a lot saved up. I mean, I've got another, couple decades left on my mortgage.
Not really.
Is there something that you've dreamed of doing for a long time? Why haven't you done it? Wingsuit. So it's this thing that's sort of like gliding with base jumping. Basically what you do is you put on this suit that's sort of like the flying squirrel kind of shape or something. And then you jump off of a mountain and then just kind of glide and fly and so forth. And then you pull your chute at the end and then hopefully land all safe and everything. That would be a lot of fun because it'd be like flying, but for real. And it would just be you and stuff. But it's also pretty expensive and time consuming. Not to mention dangerous.
You could take it up next year.
Wouldn't it be kind of irresponsible for me to...
It's not gonna matter after next year.
What is the greatest accomplishment of your life? I was thinking about saying having a kid, because in our case it was actually pretty involved. It was like a surrogacy, and we traveled to India twice, and there were all these medical procedures, etc. But in the end, I didn't really do that much for it. It was like this big, ordeal, but it wasn't like something that I personally accomplished. And then I was thinking about talking about the stuff that I did on The Incredibles, because that's probably the thing that I would be most recognized for. I did Frozone's Ice Bridge, the Ice Wall, Violet's Force Field, and a bunch of other effects throughout that movie. But as far as a sense of accomplishment, I think it would have to be my iPhone app. I did this iPhone app a few years ago called Mock Dice. Just a little dice rolling app, and you can make different size dice and do different backgrounds and so forth. But yeah, I would say that because it was something that I kind of just decided to do on my own, and I had the idea. I'd never done it before, and then I kind of worked on it for a few months, and over the years I've kind of slowly updated it more and more, and now like tens of thousands of people have actually downloaded this thing and tried it out and used it, and I get emails about it every once in a while too. So that's kind of cool. I mean, The Incredibles has been seen by way more people than the number of people that have like downloaded my iPhone app, but The Incredibles is also something that like hundreds of people have worked on, whereas my iPhone app, it was just me. So it's kind of neat. Like that's something that just wouldn't have existed in the world if I hadn't done it. So yeah, I feel a lot of accomplishment over that. What do you value most in a friendship? Time. Yeah. Because if you're a friend and you're willing to make time to come and see me and hang out or whatever, I mean that's kind of the most important thing, right? I mean it's like saying, yes, I think that you are a priority in my life, so much so that I'm not going to do these other things, and I'm going to instead hang out with you. So yeah, that means a lot to me. What is your most treasured memory? Holding my baby while he fell asleep. Yeah, that was really special. I mean, it's happened a few times. So it's not like a specific single memory, but there's like this certain age, right? When you have a baby and they're a newborn, they're basically like a potato. They don't really do much. They don't even recognize you. They're just sort of like this screaming, smelly, stinky potato kind of thing, or whatever, right? But then after maybe a couple months or so, then they actually recognize you, and they know who you are, and they feel safe with you. And when they're that young, they're like completely dependent on you. And so to have somebody that's just that tiny and fragile and I don't know, vulnerable, and yet still feel completely safe in your arms. That's, yeah, And yeah, that was incredible.
What is your most terrible memory?
Well, my dad died years ago, and that was pretty tough. I I think the hardest part was like seeing my mom and my brother, my younger brother, right after that, and yeah, just getting through that. But actually, the most terrible would be this one time with my wife. So my wife has a heart condition, and she's got like a defibrillator in her heart. And if you don't know what that is, it's basically like a pacemaker, but also if it detects that your heart is going out of rhythm or something like that, then it just sends this like electric jolt to your body, kind of like like your heart explodes, or something, like it explodes your heart with electricity, so that it can jumpstart it again and hopefully get it back on track. But it doesn't actually always work. So sometimes like the heart goes out of whack, the medication wasn't quite right or whatever. And there was this one time when yeah, it started going bad, and so she got defibrillated. And it's always terrifying to watch. It's like this jolt, and there's like she screams, and like it's super painful. But it didn't take. And so a few seconds later, it defibrillated again and again and again and again, and then she was kind of unresponsive and kind of unconscious, and like yeah. And so I called 911. I think I don't even remember. I don't even remember how we got to the hospital, but at some point we were in the emergency room, and like she was convulsing and you know kind of moving or something. No, actually, I don't know. I don't even remember, but um, they had to take her away, and they were starting to work with and do stuff, and like I was just standing there, and like there was nothing I could do, and I was just watching my wife being wheeled away. Um, yeah, and it was this feeling of utter and complete helplessness. It was, yeah, that was really hard.
If you knew that in 1 year you would die suddenly, would you change anything about the way you are now living? Why?
Oh yeah. I would do I would do things way differently. I mean, for one thing, I would totally like not work nearly as much. I don't know if I would actually quit because my job actually gives me really good medical and life insurance. So, if at all possible, I would try to maintain my employment to the very end, but take lots of time off, unpaid and everything. And then what I would do is like split the entire year up into 12 months, and then try to find like friends who would be willing to go travel with me or something like that. Ideally, like 12 friends or something, and then every month maybe go and visit or travel with them for a few days or a week or something like that. But then also every month, I'd like to take Dyson on like some sort of trip somewhere. 1 month Disneyland, another month Japan, stuff like that, and just hang out with them, and then maybe do some trips like with the whole family, with Dyson and Tracy, and maybe just go up to see the forest and stuff. But then also, every month, spend a little bit of time doing my own thing, like making some videos, some last videos, and talk about some stuff. I don't know. Maybe do some drawings and comics and some writing. I mean, it sounds kind of grim and morbid, but it'd actually be kind of cool to find out something like that, I think, because one of the things is like you can't really plan for things unless you know what's going to happen. But if you were to find out something like that, then I think you could do a much better job of preparing and planning everything out. But the only thing is like you have no idea when that
Now would be a really good time to do
you know
something like that.
What does friendship mean to you?
friendship means a lot to me. It's a sense of connection through like shared experiences or understanding or shared interests or something, where you can talk about something that you're going through, and they just understand what you're talking about. They can empathize. They can feel this sense of what you're feeling, and it's important when you're going through a difficult time, or even if you're having or going through like a really good time, the ability to have someone to share that with, and friends that you can share that with, sort of makes that experience better.
What roles do love and affection play in your life?
Not enough. Um, this is kind of personal, but I've always looked pretty young for my age. I mean, that's great when you're 40, right? And people are like, oh, you look like you're in your 20s, 30s, or whatever. That's fine. But it's not so great when you're like in high school and you're 14. Actually, I was like even younger than that because I was born late in the year and I also skipped a grade. So I was like a couple years younger than most of my other classmates, and I looked super young. So you can imagine that that was like really tough on like the whole romantic interests kind of aspect of life. And in fact, yeah, my first experiences, well, actually all my experiences on that field were almost universally that of rejection. Yeah, and so it was kind of hard. I was feeling rejected, and I ended up feeling like really undesirable at some sense. I mean, I've also I always knew that I was, a likable guy, kind of funny, whatever, nice and all that. But, in the sense of like love and affection, um, yeah, I always felt like there was like something wrong with me. And that, yeah, that happened during my formative years, right? So it's something that I've always kind of carried with me. It's something that I, struggle with now, but I don't know. Hopefully it'll get better.
Alternate sharing something you consider a positive characteristic of your partner. Share a total of 5 items.
So this is gonna be a little tricky because it's a video and you're watching it, but I don't actually see you. But if you watched this far, then that means you've watched like 12 minutes of me basically just talking, which is cool. Thank you. So I admire your patience. Number one, that's really cool. Number two, hopefully, uh, I don't know, you feel something when I talk about things that are personal. So empathy, that's really nice. Number three, curiosity. I mean, the fact that you've stuck with it this far means that you're a curious person and you're wondering what's going to happen next. Nothing like super exciting or anything, but I appreciate your curiosity. Um, Number four, well, I don't know this, but I hope that there's some equivalent sense of willingness to be open and vulnerable. I mean, I know you're just watching, but that is a positive characteristic that I admire in people. Um, Number five, uh, a willingness to take chances. Yeah, I mean, again, it's like the fact that you're watching this video is kind of a weird chance that, maybe this video is going to suck, but hopefully it doesn't. But in general, I really admire people who are willing to take chances on things because life is full of lots of opportunities that come up, and there's lots of reasons to not take them because sometimes there's a risk involved. But then, you know, and sometimes when you take those risks, they fail, and that sucks. And it's hard to keep on taking those risks. Um, but people that are willing to just keep on trying again and take those chances because they believe in something better, and um, that that's a really positive characteristic that I admire.
How close and warm is your family? Do you feel your childhood was happier than most other people's?
So I think our family is pretty close, but I don't know if I would say that we were especially warm growing up. I was I was at this party the other day, and somebody was asking me, "How do you say I love you in Japanese?" And I was like, "I don't know, 'cause my mom never told me." But I feel like my parents loved us, and yeah, they were proud of us and everything. Yeah, I think our family was pretty happy. Yeah, I don't know, like happier than most. I don't know. I don't know what other people's families are like, but I do feel pretty fortunate in my childhood. Yeah.
How do you feel about your relationship with your mother?
Adversarial? I mean, when I was a kid, I was pretty stubborn, and we were both very strong-willed, so that led to some conflict. But now I'm an adult, so it's better. Although, my mom's always going to be my mom, and so she's always going to try to mother me and stuff like that. So, you know, that can be a little bit hard, rough sometimes. But I admire her a lot. It's hard for me to imagine, but she moved to the United States when she was pretty young, and like left everything that she knew and everyone she knew, and to start a new life in a country that she hardly spoke the language of, and all of that, and then eventually she married my dad, and then a little later she had me and my brother, and she was basically just by herself the whole time. I mean, my dad was working full time, and she didn't really know that many people, and there weren't a lot of Japanese people in Southern California, in Pasadena around that back then, and so she just did a lot of stuff, by herself. It's hard enough being a parent for the first time, but I feel like I've got a fair amount of support. Like, well, my wife is a full-time mom, and so that makes it a lot easier for me. But back then, like dads didn't really do a whole lot, like in terms of raising the kids. Like my dad never changed our diaper. It just wasn't something that a lot of men did. Uh, and my and on top of that, my mom was kind of isolated. Like she didn't have a lot of friends or family or any family like in the area or anything like that. So she just basically had to do a lot of stuff, on her own. Um, but she did it. Like she raised me and my brother. Um, I think she did a pretty good job. Uh, so I admire that a lot. It's also, yeah, pretty inspirational. And it's also why I try to do as much as I can, with my own son. So yeah, yeah, she was quite an inspiration. Okay, so that was the end of part two. This ended up being twice as long as the last video. So thank you so much for watching. And if there's interest, I'll do a third one and finish it off. All right, see ya.